Yes, we are back learning again a very, very different shiur than last week. Last week, we we learned about many of the different conversations, many of the debates, many of the heated dialogues between, I think it was three, between Rabbi Akiva and Turnus Rufus, the Roman butcher, the Roman general who ultimately wanted to decimate all of Judea and all of Judaism and all of the sages. But we are going to have a very, very different shiur this week. We are going to discuss and highlight the conversations, and actually really not the conversations, but the relationship between Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who's called Rebbe, who's called Rabbeinu Hagadol, and Antoninus. So first of all, who was, a little bit of background of who Rebbe was, really upon the Rebbe was a Nasi, right? That's why he called Rebbe Yehuda Hanasi. And when his father passed away, so Rebbe succeeded his father as the Nasi. He was a seventh generation Nasi, dating all the way back to Hillel Hazakin. He was also the head of the yeshiva. Where he was, and he started a court. He started a court, which ultimately became his court, became the Sanhedrin. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi is living probably a generation or two after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. So he's living in the middle of the 2nd century. We know that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed in 70 CE. So he's living mostly after the destruction. He's living mostly in the north of Judea, in the north of Israel. He's the head of the Mesivta. That's what the yeshiva was called, the Mesivta. So he was the head of the Mesivta in Beit Sha'arim, but then later he moved to Tzipori, another city in the north, and he meets Antoninus when he is living in the holy city of Tiberia. We know that there are 4 holy cities, right? If you would ask that trivia question to most people, so I think Tiberia would be the one that would get most people. It's like what's the 5th of the 5 towns, right? So what's the 4th of the 4 holy cities? Obviously Yerushalayim, Chevron, Tzvat, and then Tiberia, because the Sanhedrin was there for a long time. It was the last place where the Sanhedrin was. And the Sanhedrin would follow Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi wherever he was. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi is really known for, he is the editor. We'll say he wrote the Mishnah. And ultimately, this is going to be the first in a 2-part series. But next week, we're going to end off with an unbelievable comment of Rashi, how Rashi, in Bav Metzia, as you can see in the last source in the source sheet, how he refers to Rebbe's relationship with Antoninus, and how that plays a pivotal role in the publishing of the Mishnah. So Rabbi is traveling all over Eretz Yisrael, obviously in the north, and he's making new halachos, or he's putting his zeros down, and he whenever he feels just necessary that the people need a little bit more of a safeguard, I guess, the religious observance. His authority was absolute. He was respected by all. He was respected by everyone in Eretz Yisrael, all the Jews in Eretz Yisrael, as well as the Jews in Bavel. He was held in very, very high regard, very, very high esteem. And I guess the coolest thing is that he was very, very tall. He was the tallest of all the Jews. I'm sure there's symbolism in that as well. But the Gemara in Nida and Daf Chav Daled tells us that he was the tallest. Interesting. We have a lot of people who the Moshe Rabbeinu, the Medrash says, was very, very tall. We know that Shaul HaMelech, Mishichma V'mala, he was like basically head and shoulders above everybody else. But one of the most remarkable things about Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's whole life, and he really is a hero, a great hero of the Jewish people. You make a list, he's a top 20 Jew of all time. I don't make that list, but we could say he's a top 20 Jew of all time. Is really his relationship with the Roman emperor, who is in Yerushalayim, who is in Israel, who's Antoninus. And first of all, the historians say that Antoninus was named Marcus or Aurelius Antoninus, who was obviously who ruled in the middle of the 2nd century. So I want to go really through their relationship. I want to go through a couple of the Gemaras. Here you can see on our source sheet the Gemara that we're going to really there are a bunch of stories and basically a half of an amud in Maseches Avodah Zarah that really sheds light on this remarkable, almost unbelievable to a certain extent, relationship between Rebbe and Antoninus. And then next week we're going to see a couple of their debates, a couple of their conversations, and then finish with this amazing comment of Rashi to really fully comprehend the enormity of their relationship. So we're going to start actually. The way I did the source sheets is a little bit off. They're broken up into paragraphs. So we're going to go to the fourth paragraph to begin our study. First of all, Rebbe and Antoninus met when Antoninus is passing through, he's traveling through Judea, and in the city of Tiberia, he meets Rebbe and he kind of like falls in love with Rebbe. He finds Rebbe to be this unbelievable person, this personality, this person, and just this unbelievable sage and saint and human being. So Gemara says, Kol yom hava mishamesh l'Rebbe. Every single day, Antoninus, once he met him and he started this relation with him, he would serve Rebbe. Machile, he would give him food. Mashkile, he would give him to drink. Ki avabai Rebbe lemesek lepuria. Whatever Rebbe needed to go up on his bed probably means his couch, wherever he would sit, right? They sat everywhere they sat and they ate on these big couches. So anytime he needed to go on, let's say, an elevated couch, ki hava ba'il Rebbe lemesak lepuria, whatever he would need to climb up onto the puria, that's a bed, have gachin kamei puria. What would he do? Antoninus would bow, would like crouch down. He would lie down, so his gachin in back, so that Rebbe would be able to climb on his back, and he would say, "Amar le, sekei ilavei lepuriach, climb on me, so you can get to your bed." Amar. So Rebbe said, "Amar lav orech ara." It's not the way of the world. It's not orech ara. It's not mechubad. It's not okay. It's not done. L'zilzuli b'malchusa kulehai. To be so mezalzel, to embarrass or to demean, is probably a better word, to demean the malchus, to demean the monarch, right? You, kulehai, so much. Interesting that Rebbe said, it's not the way of the world. L'zulze b'malchusa kulehai, so much, right? Too much. Maybe it's okay to lezuzeh b'malchusa, but not kulehai. Okay. Amar, mi simeni matzah tachtayich liolam haba. So Rebbe says, I don't want to it's too demeaning for me to climb on your back. What are you talking about? Antoninus says, I hope to be, if only I could be the matzah, if only I could be the mat, right? Like the welcoming mat under you in Olam Haba. I mean, I would be the happiest guy in the world. When we get to Olam Haba, you're sitting on me, or you're standing on me, or you're resting on me. Nothing in the world can make me happier than that. So then he says, Antoninus says to Rebbe, okay, right? So he said to Rebbe, I wish I could be the mat under your feet, under your body in Olam Haba. Then Antoninus says to Rebbe, Rebbe doesn't respond. He goes, Asina la alma de asi. Says, maybe you think I have a chance to get into to Olam Haba? Can I make it into the world to come? Amar le, Rebbe responds to Antoninus, for sure, yes. Amar le, right? Whenever you're learning Gemara, it's very hard because in means yes, but in Hebrew, Aleph Yud Nun, ein means no. So you have to know when it means ein no or in yes. Rebbe responds, in yes, I think you can get in. You can get in. Amar le, so he says, V'haksiv, Antoninus knows the Bible, he knows the scripture, he knows Tanakh from Sefer Ovadia, right? This is, I love Sefer Ovadia. Why? Because it's a one perek Sefer, right? One perek Sefer talks about a lot of the punishment that's going to happen to Edom, to the Bnei Esav. You're going to see that in a second, right? What's amazing? It's a one perek Sefer. It's in Treyasar, and it's the entire Sefer is the Haftorah for Parshas Vayishlach. Vayishlach is Yaakov and Esav. That's the battle, and that's their last encounter. So that's why Ovadia is the fitting Haftorah for that parsha. But so Antoninus says, I can get into Olam Haba. V'aksiv, doesn't the pasuk say lo yisari lebeis Esav? Right, there should be no remnant. Right, there's going to be no remnant of the Bnei Esav. And Edom, Rome is Edom, and ultimately they are the descendants of Esav. So we're saying, how could I get into Olam Haba if ultimately the goal is that there's no remnant of Esav at all? So Rebbe says, no, that's not the way. It doesn't mean it's lebase Esav, in the home or the house of Esav. What does that mean? It means ba'osa masa Esav. It only means if you do what? If you hold by and you acquire the masa Esav, the actions of Esav. Meaning, if you live like an Esav, if you live a life like and you espouse the morals, depravity, and the disgusting values of Esav, and you do their actions, so then you have a din of Esav. But if you don't do that, then you don't have a din of Esav. So yes, I think you can go into I think you make it into Olam Haba. Tanya nami hachlu into the Brisa lo yisari lebeis Esav. Right, where the pasuk says that there should be no remnant of the base Esav. Yachol hakol. Perhaps that means everybody is part of Esav. Talmud Lomar, right? Because the Brisa is proving what we just said. Talmud Lomar, we learn from here, the base Esav means ba'osa ma'asa Esav. Now there is a machlokas, there is a discussion whether Antoninus ended up converting or not. The Yerushalmi says. The Talmud Yerushalmi is of the opinion that he did convert to Judaism, and that's why he got into Olam Haba. But the Bavli doesn't mention that at all, and perhaps he was able to go into Olam Haba even as a non-Jew. Now let's go to the top of the page. Antoninus was once again so taken by Rebbe and who he was, and he loved to learn Torah with Rebbe. The Gemara tells us. Hahi Nikrita, there was a cave, meaning there was like basic. I don't know if it was really a cave. A Nikrita, Rashi says a ma'ara, like ma'arat hamachpila. So that means that's a cave, but I think it means like an underground traveling system. Okay, there was some like walkway. So Hahi Nikrita, there was this cave. The Hava Aile Mibese, that Antoninus would go from his home lebeis Rebbe, underground, right? And Rashi says, why did he go? Amazing. Lilmod Torah. He went to learn Torah. Kol yom have a maisi trei avdei. Now look at this one. What he would do. Every day he would go with 2 guards. Why he needed guards, I'm not 100% sure, but maybe he never could leave his. I don't know. Maybe he could never leave his house without guards. But it says that every day, Kol yom have a maisi trei avdei. He would walk with 2 guards to Rebbe's house. Chad, one of them, katle abava debei Rebbe. Right before he entered into Beis Rebbe's house, they're taking, once again, this nikrata, this underground, like subway system, this underground walkway that no one knows about. It's secret. It's secretive. So he would kill this guy. He would kill one of the guards that accompanied him right before he gets into Rebbe's house. V'chad katle abava de beise, and right before he got back to his house, he would kill the second guard. Amar lei. So he says, "Be'idna da'asina lo nishka gvar kamach." He tells, first of all, Tosfos asked the question. We're talking about Antoninus. We just said it previously in the Gemara. He's going to make Olam Haba. He's just a killer. He's going to kill these guys every single day. He's killing a different person, right? Because even a non-Jew can't murder, right? Shvichas damim. Tosfos is asking that murder, shvichas damim, is one of the Sheva mitzvos b'nei Noach. It's one of the 7 Noahide laws that a person is not allowed to do. How do you get away with it? So Tosfos says, no. He wouldn't take random people. He would take people that were already guilty and they were worthy of capital punishment. They were supposed to be killed anyway. So he just he covered it up here, and this is how he made it happen. So last second line on the page. He tells Rebbe, I'm coming to you every day, learning Torah. I love it. This is amazing. This is the highlight of my day. But please make sure that there's no one else here. No one should ever be found with you. This is just me and you. We're learning together. Yom Echad, second paragraph. Yom Echad, one day, Ashke, he finds, when he comes in, Rabbi Chanina bar Chama, there's another person there. Rabbi Chanina bar Chama is in Rabbi's house. Dehava Yosef, he was sitting there. Amar lo aminalach beidna da'asina lo nishkach kvar kamach. Now he tells Rabbi, didn't I tell you? You forgot? Didn't I tell you that I don't want anybody else here? Amar le, Rabbi says, amazing. This is unbelievable. This has nothing to do with Antoninus. This is just amazing. Rabbi, why he was there, Bar Chama, not sure. The Gemara doesn't tell us. But Rebbe then says, no. Leis din bar inish. He's not a person. Antoninos, don't worry. This guy, he's not a person. What does that mean? The Rabbeinu Hanan on the side of the Gemara tells us, what does it mean that he's not a person? He's a malach. We're saying he was a malach. Amar lei. Okay? So now, Antoninos wanted to test whether this guy was a malach or not. Amar lei. Ema lei lahu avda de gani abava de ka'im vilesi. So he says, okay, you're not a person, you're a malach, you're this person, you're this malach, you're this angel. So you do me a favor, prove to me. Go outside, and there's a guy that's sleeping on the floor. My eved, my servant, is outside. He's sleeping on the floor. Please go there and wake him up, get him up. Azal Rabbi Chanina bar Chama. Rabbi Chanina bar Chama goes. Ashkichai, he finds Davakotil, that the guy's murdered, that the guy's killed. Right? Obviously, it was a test. Antoninos was the guy who murdered him, right? Amar hechi avid. So he says, "Whoa, now I'm in a catch 22. I'm in a pretty difficult predicament. I'm in a bind here." He says to himself, "Hechi avid, what should I do? I izol ve'emole dekatil." Right? If I go back to Antoninos and I tell him, "Hey, buddy, he's not sleeping anymore. He's killed." Ein mashivan ala kalkala. There's a concept, we're not going to get into this, but there's a concept from the Gemara in Megillah that you should never be the bearer of bad news, right? You shouldn't be giving besoros raos, bad news. You shouldn't be that evil tidings or negative tidings to people. So he says, I can't do that. Ein mashivin ala kalkala. Ashkevei. So he says, if I just leave, if I leave, ve'izol kamezalzelin b'malchusa. How could I do that? That's even mezalzel the malchus, right? I'm just the Antoninos, right? This emperor, this he might be one of the most powerful people in the whole entire world. At least in Judea, he's the most powerful person. And now he's asking me to do something, and I'm just going to leave. First of all, I might get Rebbe in trouble, but it's zulzula. It's once again mizal zilin de malchusa. We're demeaning the emperor. We're demeaning the government. We're demeaning this royal monarch. So what did he decide to do? Boy rachamei alei. He prayed for racham, and he davened. He davened for this person, and what happened? V'achyei, and the person lived. It's not that he died and he came back. He was killed and he came back. So what a like an open miracle that took place over here. And he listens. So he sends him in. He sends him into Antoninos. Amar. And then he says, Antoninos says this. Amar. Right? He says, whoa, now the least of you. The lowest of the people. Why he calls Rabbi Chanina bar Chama the lowest? But he said now the regular Joes in the house of Rabbi can be Mechayim Mesim, can resurrect the dead. He says, wow, that's amazing, Rabbi, awesome. Even the regular guys in your house can perform Tchias HaMesim. Mihu, however, next time I come, I don't want people anymore. We're not doing this again. Let's not play this game. I don't want anybody to know of this secret chavrusa that I have going with you. Let's continue. Let's go now down to the third toleh on the sheet. Amar le, it's Aleph Lamed. Aleph Lamed. We see another. We have these. They have these debates, and not only debates in the Gemara and Sanhedrin that we'll see next week. That's more of the debates here. Rebbe would very often ask, Antoninos would ask Rebbe for advice. He would be going through something, he would need a Rebbe. So he asked Rebbe, he asked Rebbe Huda Nasi. Gemara says, Amrli Antoninos the Rebbe. Antoninos says to Rebbe, I have two things that I want. Ba'ina de yimloch asvaris brei tachtoi. I hope that my son Asvaris will take over after me. He'll rule after me. And also, you know what also, this is amazing, Vitis Avid Tiveria Kalanya. I also want it to be that Tiveria is a free community. Antoninos was always looking out for the Jews, and he said, I want Tiveria to not have to pay taxes. I want them to be clear of their taxes. So he has two requests, that his son Asvaris takes over for him, and the second is that Tiveria becomes a clean community. Why Dafka Tiveria? That's where the Sanhedrin was. That's where all the Talmidei Chacham. That's where the most sages were. So therefore, he wanted them that they shouldn't have to pay taxes. Now he says, "V'i emaluhu chada avdi." right? If I ask for one, if I make one request to my higher ups, right? Avdi, they'll do it. But Trey, if I ask them for two things, lo Avdi, they won't do it. So what happens? Rebbe then comes. I see Gabri brings a person, Arkeve Achavrei, and he brings one person, and he puts person number one on the shoulders of person number two. V'yahiv le Yona, and he gives person number two a Yona. He gives number two a pigeon, a dove, li'iyule biyadei, to hold it in his hand. V'amarle, and he says to the bottom person number one, today, Emer li'ila de lemifrach min yad Yona. He says to the top person, he says, tell the first person, the bottom person, to tell the top person to let the dove fly away. De lemifrach min yad Yona. Amar, Antonino said, Shma mina. Now I know what's this cryptic language that Rebbe is using. Why doesn't he just give him advice? Why do you have to do this whole charade with the second guy on the first guy, and the guy's holding a pigeon, and he tells him to go out? So he says, Shma mina hachi, v'sha'achi ka'amarli. This is really what he's saying to me. At boy minay chud asvaris. You, Antoninus, you should ask that your son takes over for you, right? B're'yim loch tachtoi. And then you'll tell your son, Asvarus, this Avi Tiveria Klanya. And then you'll tell Asvarus that one of the requests that he should make, right? One of the questions that he should make should be this special request that Tiveria becomes a no tax community. Now, I think what's going on here, I think that Rebbe doesn't want to be caught, right? Rebbe, what you see in this relationship here with this Gemara, with this specific Gemara, is that Antoninus thought the world of Rebbe, and Antoninus was all in, and he served him. Right? This guy's one of the leaders of the whole entire world, and he is serving Rebbe, this Jew. Rebbe loved him, and they were very close, but he always knew what Antoninus could turn into and could do, and then he could turn on him in a split second. So I think what the Gemara here is saying, that he didn't want to say it outright. He didn't want to give Antoninus advice to go against his higher ups, and for it anyway to be able to be traced back that, Rebbe said this. Rebbe never said this. Antoninus inferred something from something that Rebbe did, and but Rebbe understood that when I'm dealing with others, when I'm dealing with politicians, I can be friendly and I can be close, but I can't be so close. Okay? Then we have another Gemara, just another cryptic exchange basically between Rebbe and Antoninus. The Gemara says that Antoninus had a daughter. Havale, this is the second to last paragraph on the page. Havale Barta Dishmagira. Antoninus had a daughter whose name was Gira. Ka'avda Isura, and she did an Isser. She did some type of prohibition. Rashi tells us that it was in the realm of sexual immorality. So what happened? Okay, so Antoninus wanted to ask basically Rebbe's advice. He was nervous that this was going to become like some type of public scandal. So how was he ultimately going to deal with this? Okay, so Shaderle Gargira. So he sent Rebbe a Gargira. This is the way the Maharsha is explaining this whole Gemara. He sends Antoninus sends Rebbe a Gargira. A Gargira, everything's going to be a play on words. Gargira is an herb, okay? And this herb, right, which is basically which is referring to his daughter, okay? And Shader, so he's saying Gargira, that, and the word ligror means to pull or to drag. And he's basically saying, my daughter was dragged into this. It wasn't really her fault. And they're doing this all on basically what they're sending things. The word has some type of, that's the way they're doing this, almost like Morse code. It's like Webster's Dictionary, etymology, Morse code. So Shaderle, right? So he says, she was drawn into this. She wasn't really her fault. Antoninus does what? Shaderle karte. So Shaderle kuskarta. So in response, Rebbe sends back to Antoninus a seed, which is called a kusparta, meaning that what? That she should get cut, right? Kare, she should get killed. She did a major isser, even though she's not Jewish, but still, like we said, that murder is one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. So too is adultery. But Antonino says Shadar lekarte, sends back a leak, which is also the same root, to basically say that if his daughter dies, his whole family lineage, all of his descendants are going to be cut off, and he's going to have nobody to follow in his footsteps, which is weird because we already said that he had a son, but that's what the Maharsha explains. Shalach le chase. So Rebbe says, no. Oh, you know what? If in the end your whole family is going to be cut off and you're going to have no descendants, so ultimately that's going to be ultimately the end of your bloodline. So chasa means you should have rachmanus on her and leave her be, and she'll be better next time. Let's look at the last source for today, which is also amazing. Antoninus wasn't only looking out for Rebbe, and wasn't only looking out for the Talmidei Chachamim to vary, like he wanted them to become a free community, but he also had a vision, and he saw the future. And Antoninus realized and knew, and it was obviously clear that he was unique, and that most of the Romans wanted all the Jews dead, and they didn't want them to practice Judaism, and he wanted them, and he wanted to kill them, right? But Antoninus was unique. Antoninus was different, and that whoever was going to follow Antoninus, or maybe who was going to follow Antoninus' son, the Jews were that. This was going to be the best the Jews ever got. So Kol Yom Hava Shadar le Dava Pricha. He would send every single day. Antoninus would send crushed gold. Dahava, a dalid in Aramaic, is usually a Hebrew zayin. So dahava is like zahava, right? It would be crushed gold, v'mitrasta, in some type of leather sack, Rashi says. Basically, every day there would be a leather sack of crushed gold that would be sent from Antoninus to Rebbe. Now, why is Antoninus giving gold, giving all this money, all this great treasure to this rabbi? So v'chite apumayhu, right? But on top, if you would open up the sack, it looked like there was chita, just like that there was wheat, right? It was all gold, but the top was wheat. So if someone checked, what is he giving him? He's giving him wheat. It's not such a big deal. I think that gold weighs much more than wheat, but I'm not asking that question. Okay, Amar Lahu. He says, the Rebbe says back to Antoninus, Am tov chiti, right? Bring me my wheat. Why are you bringing me wheat? Amar Leil Rebbe. Lo tzrichna means why? Sorry. Antoninus said to one of his servants, Amar Lahu, he said to his servants, Am tivchiti leRebbe, go bring Rebbe his daily wheat, right? Wheat in parentheses, in quotes. Amar le Rebbe said back to Antoninus, Lo tzrichna isli tuv. I have a lot of money. I don't need your handouts. I don't need your gifts. It's very sweet. It's wonderful. We have a wonderful relationship, but I don't need it for you. Isli tuva. I have a lot. Amar. He says, Lihave leman de bisrach, give it to your children after you. Dihave lebasrai, and they will give it to their children afterwards. The asu basrach, v'da asi minaychu nifuk alayhu. Right? What's going to happen? Because my successors are not going to be as nice as me. There's going to come a time where you're going to need that money. So invest that money, keep that money hidden, keep on giving it down and down as the give it to my successors are not going to be as lovely, as thoughtful, as giving, as generous, as amazing as I am. So I'm setting you, not you, Rebbe, you're going to be long gone, but your grandchildren and great grandchildren, I'm setting them up for success. And Rebbe every single day would receive, it seems like from the Gemara, Kol Yoma, right? Every day he would receive, probably not Shabbos, every single day he would receive gold. He would receive all this money from Antoninus, and Antoninus like representing the Roman government, which is unbelievable to think about, that we had this unique relationship. The Romans are ruling over Judea. This is obviously after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, but the Romans are ruthless and they're killers, and here you have this relationship between, it's almost like a righteous Gentile and one of the greatest rabbis in our history. Next week we're going to see part two. Part two has these fascinating debates, and then finally the comment of Rashi and Bav Metzia that I think is puts everything back into perspective, and we have to be very appreciative of Antoninus. And we'll see you next week. Have a great, great week.